Alrighty, let's get started. We needed a bigger room. For this session, we are going to be covering how you can use Copilot Studio and Foundry together, which is a session very near and dear to my heart. Name's 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗶𝗸𝗄𝗏. I'm actually previously from the Microsoft Foundry team, and I joined Copilot Studio back in May, and I've been trying to drive a deeper integration between these two products ever since. And it's important because what we're seeing from customers out there, customers like yourself, frontier firms, are trying to build agents and expand their workforce and redesign their workflows with AI, but it's very challenging today because of the plethora of options for your developers, for your teams. Because it's not just IT that's working on AI automation and building out agents, it's your entire company. Customer service, sales, finance, marketing, HR. They're all trying to figure out how do they revolutionize what they do today with AI. And because your entire company is looking at this problem, some challenges are likely starting to appear. One, because everyone is kind of scrambling and choosing their own tools from different providers, you have a very fragmented agentic stack. It's very hard for all of your different agents from the different platforms that you procure to actually talk with one another. And then when there are investments into these agent platforms, the HR department probably has some data about employees. Finance has the finance data. They're building connections to their own agents, but not elsewhere. There's a disconnect. Challenge two, there's a disconnect between the data, and it creates operational silos. And then 6 months, a year down the road, because everyone's building on these different platforms, you're trying these convergence projects, you just can't do it, and it slows things down, and then your expectations aren't being met. Challenge three. And challenge four, you then have this shadow IT problem, where because everyone's using different agentic platforms, the poor folks in IT have to figure out who's doing what. Is this system that we're actually building with AI actually secure? Now, you could imagine a solution being to come in and decree we shall all use the exact same product. But the challenge with that is every company, no matter if it's big or small, has different people inside of it with different skills and different preferences on the technologies that you use. You would never ask a business user to start figuring out how to code C# and Python. Likewise, you wouldn't necessarily ask a professional developer to go to a 𝗦𝗽𝗲𝗍𝗶𝗍 tool and not have the expressiveness, the power that comes from them being able to write real code. So how does Microsoft address this? Microsoft is one of the few companies that actually has two agentic agent building platforms dedicated to the key personas that we see out in the market today. That's Copilot Studio for your business users and IT admins, basically people that want a low-code experience and maybe a little bit of code, right? We make sure that there are fully managed environments so that you aren't dealing with Azure resources like Cosmos DB and Azure SQL. Like, don't have to worry about that. And because most of these business users, if you told them about DevOps, their eyes would glaze over, we have built-in DevOps directly into the product with Power Platform solutions, environments, and pipelines. On the other side, Microsoft Foundry, this is your pro code developer's dream because it has Azure in its bones. You can write real code, you have full control over all your Azure resources, and you can develop your own CI/CD pipelines. Now, this is extra work, right? But this is extra work that your developers are used to, want to do, and are really good at it, and it gives them more power. And so these are the two choices that we give you as customers. And based on your team and the skill set, you can choose the product that you want to use. Because at this point, both products can basically do the exact same thing when it comes to agents. Now, there are some challenges that we've heard about that at the end of the session, you'll be like, oh, great, it's being addressed. One is getting started. If you're starting with Copilot Studio, you might see like, oh, there's this really cool feature in Foundry. Or if you're in Foundry, oh, there's this really cool feature in Copilot Studio. I wish I could be able to use it. And so it prevents you from actually getting started, right? Then there's company-wide code reuse. So if you do build something within a central IT department and you want all of your sub-departments to use the agents and components that were built, it's traditionally been a little bit difficult. And that leads to difficulty with having real fusion teams where you have business users and IT professionals working together on the exact same team. What I'm going to be sharing with you, what we're going to be sharing with you today, is how we're removing those silos between Copilot Studio and Foundry so that they do feel like a seamless platform from Microsoft. And we do that through both components. So there's components from Foundry like custom models and indexes that you can bring into Copilot Studio. But where it becomes really powerful and what's now available is being able to take a Copilot Studio agent, using it inside of a Microsoft Foundry agent, and vice versa. This is what will allow you to stitch together the different solutions that your teams are building across your entire company. We're bridging that gap. And to show you what this looks like in reality, we prepared for you a demo. I briefly showed it earlier in my session earlier today with MCP and multi-agent. We have built a Java benefits agent that allows someone to make claim support requests, and it will use agents from both Copilot Studio and Microsoft Foundry. Copilot Studio, again, maybe the policy team where they don't know how to code, but they're really great at making SharePoint files and uploading them. They've built that Copilot Studio agent, and it's going to work side by side with the Microsoft Foundry agent built by professional developers that want something more sophisticated, a workflow. And we're going to show both of these things in a single chat. You can put it in a website, but we're going to show inside of Microsoft Teams. Now, I could demo it again. It would be great if we had someone in the crowd from Microsoft Foundry to help us out. Do we have, oh, Seth, great.
I can help.
Let's all welcome Seth onto the stage.
All right. Hello, my friends. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you.
Yeah, so Microsoft Copilot Studio, Foundry.
And now we're friends.
We're friends. We're trying to make it as awkward as possible. So here's an example in Teams. Tell me about the gold policy, right? And notice that it's giving me a really good answer. And the cool thing about this is that it tells you what agent is using it. And so shortly you're going to see where these agents actually live.
Yeah, it's bolded.
It's bolded. Oh! Does it say it right next to it?
Yeah,
that's super handy.
We really wanted to make it painfully obvious where these agents are came from, so we have it in the system instructions.
Well, so you're giving stuff away. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we asked it a little, so it gives us the information, and the next thing we want to do is like do a claim, right?
Yeah, well, ask some more additional information.
Okay.
Like, I don't know, ask like, what's the hospitalization policy?
What's the hospitalization?
I chose the hardest word for him to spell.
Policy. Like give me something a little bit shorter. Now the cool thing about this is that this is using Teams, but it's talking to Copilot Studio. And Copilot Studio is really cool because it allows you to integrate across any number of things, especially Teams, and it has a number of channels that make it really nice. But inside of Teams, the cool thing about Teams is that this is where I work every day, and this is where I get stuff done. And so it's cool to be able to have these things come in. So as it's thinking about it, it's thinking about it.
It took a minute for it to be sent because I didn't have the foresight to have this hardwired in. I don't know if someone from the back could help us real quick to get an Ethernet in. Is there an adapter? Yes, no, maybe so. If not, okay.
That's okay.
In that case,
here we go.
It came in.
It's thank you. Yeah.
Those claps are from the other rooms, but we're going to take them.
We'll take them. But notice that it's giving me an actually really good answer, right?
Yes.
So that's the Copilot Studio side. But then there's another side, because you saw that the one where we uploaded a bunch of documents and things come out. Then there was this complex claims processing thing.
Yes.
And so let's see if we can't start a claim. So.
I'll start a claim.
Okay,
so start a claim.
A claim, okay.
And it was for, I had an issue on the 5th.
Okay. Now here's the thing. How many of you are very excited about submitting claims? Everyone's like,
yeah, and not.
We don't like it, Seth. It's terrible. Please make it easy. if you could build something in code. But the thing about a claims processing agent is that this is a much more complex system that requires multiple steps, that requires you to look at the output of a thing and do another thing, etc. And there you go. Would you like me to keep? Can I say yes?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, sure?
Sure.
Oh, sure. Yes. Okay, so this is the cool thing about this, is that this is a complex thing that someone needs to get their fingers pruny into the system and maybe code some actual logic or figure out how to make this process repeatable.
Yes.
Repeatable.
Repeatable the same way every time. You don't want agents coming up with new plans.
Yes, no. I'm sure our insurance company would not like, I would like it if I got lucky one day, but no, we need to make sure that this stuff works. So notice that this was all in one agent inside of Teams talking to two agents. So how might this work?
You should show them.
Okay, so let's go over here to Copilot Studio. Now, this is not my wheelhouse. I learned all about this recently.
In the last 24 hours.
This is delightful. Can I just say it's delightful? I love it. Notice that this is the overview of the 𝗦𝗲 benefits agent. And as I scroll down, you can see that this, let me zoom in here. You can see that it says, thanks, I'm going to invoke the name of the agent from the actual location, right? And so that's why you saw that in there. So it's following the instructions. But the cool thing is that it has in its actual logic, when when it routes things, it can route things to the policy expert. And the policy expert, if I go to it, is the thing that we all know and love if you live in MCS land. I now know and love it too. Mads, it's me too. Notice that we've uploaded a bunch of policy documents.
So easy.
You just upload the policy documents, and now it just knows about this, which to me is really cool, because everyone loves reading policy documents. And so that's why we have that there. So notice, this is just a standard MCS thing. But now the new thing, which is really cool when I go to agents, is that I'm able to actually connect it to the Foundry agents as well. And look at that beautiful icon.
It is beautiful. Is that the right icon, Seth?
I don't know. Is this the right icon? It looks beautiful. It better be the right icon. And the cool thing about this is that when you're adding additional agents to do the processing, notice that it's actually really hard to do it. So let's get out our clicky fingers. And let me go here. And in next week, you're going to start to see something like this. That's awesome, right? Can we clap for this? Yes, this is delightful. It's delightful.
Oh, okay, let's get the other agents in there too. It's more than Foundry, right? So if you
it's Foundry.
Stop.
Plus others.
Okay, yeah.
Plus others. Okay.
If you use Google, they use 𝗲𝗬𝗃.
Yes.
It's right there.
It's all right there. But here's the beautiful part of this, right? And this is the cool thing, is that when you have, for example, your power users that understand policy, have documents, know how to set this up in Copilot Studio, they can do it. But then when you've got to do your complex claims processing, programming stuff, things that need to live in an agent, for example, a container agent, or things that you code with LangChain, whatever, that can actually live in Foundry, and they can both live together. We were going to end this session with an uncomfortably long hug.
I said no.
Until everybody left, because I want you to understand that this is actually really cool that we can put these things together. And so let me zoom out and show you. Let me show you how hard this is again. So let me go through, and we've connected to Foundry. You literally just put the agent ID, and that's it.
That's it.
Isn't that nice? Yes, I know. Thank you. I wish I could say I built this, but this isn't my product.
Well, actually, Foundry built this UI.
Oh, did we?
Yeah.
I knew it was good. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. That was dumb. I'm so sorry. But by the way, I want to dive into what this submit claim thing is, because I told you it was like a super complicated process that required multiple steps. If you go into Foundry, is it this agent right here?
Oh, okay.
No.
These are your individual agents.
No. I need to go to my workflows.
Yeah, you have your workflows.
So this is the submit claim one. And when I click into it, you're going to see that indeed that it's a complex process that requires multiple. Why do you have it like that? It needs to be like this.
I know.
It needs to be like this. So notice that this he's left to right, I'm top down, I guess. And so notice that you can start to create, you can get information. There's if, else statements. You can ask for more information. It's literally a multi-step workflow that goes through exactly what you need to do to submit a claim or reject it or ask for more information.
Exactly.
You can also do things like human in the loop, where all of a sudden it's like, I can't, oh, it isn't in there?
Well, we have it escalate to human.
What? See, and so notice that you can actually do all of this stuff, complex process, directly in Microsoft Foundry, which is amazing. And so,
and if you wanted to go even more complex, you mentioned container agents.
Oh, you can literally, like, if you're like, we love LangChain, we want to use it, you totally can. You can create your own hosted container agent where you push it up, and that container agent can live in Microsoft Foundry. You can call it from Microsoft Copilot Studio. It can also form part of one of these workflows. It's like cats and dogs living together as friends. Except that we're not we're all animals. Well, no, this didn't come out right. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of things. So we talked about how to go from Copilot Studio here, from Copilot Studio to Foundry. But what about the reverse? Okay, the reverse. So notice that notice that there's a channel. There's a channel thing over here where you can make this agent and expose it as an MCP head.
And we announced this in our earlier session as private preview. So if you're interested, join our private preview.
Let us know. But notice that now this agent becomes an actual tool that can be used by Foundry agents, right? So if I'm in the Microsoft Foundry agents, let me go to the agent here. Let me click on agents here real quick. Here's the research claim pre-approval agent, and I have here a pre-seeded question. Tell me about the gold policy. And what this is going to do is this is going to call back to Microsoft Copilot Studio, so that even within Microsoft Foundry, you can call back to these other things. So yes, absolutely, I approve this. Wonderful. And what's happening is it's actually calling the MCP head that we've exposed in Microsoft Copilot Studio, so that in Microsoft Foundry, you can talk to those. Because here's the thing that I love about AI is that now we're getting domain experts. Is it doing it? Oh, you keep going.
Tell me.
We can get domain experts working in Microsoft Copilot Studio, validating that things are working, and then you can have devs working on complex processes, and they can both call each other. It's amazing. Did I cover everything?
You covered it all, Seth. You did it. I gave him a really great script.
This is awesome. Yeah.
And Seth is my favorite demoer, so give your hands up to Seth.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. That was great, right? Okay. So now I need to switch back to the slideware, and recap what we just learned. So we saw that both products have support for connected agents, being able to call one or the other. We mentioned that you are now able to call Foundry agents from Copilot Studio that is in public preview. And as I mentioned, the ability to go the other way around, calling a Copilot Studio as an MCP server, that is in private preview. If you watch the MCP session, there's a QR code at the end of it. You might need to see the recording, and you can access that private preview there. And with all of these fun integrations, these platforms are starting to actually feel like one. You can start to build these multi-agent systems, but we did not want to stop there. We also wanted to make sure that the actual underlying code that is running between both Copilot Studio and Microsoft Foundry was the same code. We wanted to make sure that the agents communicated the same way, that you could save the agents the same way and version control them, and observe them the exact same way. And the way we achieve that is with the introduction of the Microsoft Agent Framework. This is our open source SDK that we are telling all of you to use to build agents, and it's what we in Copilot Studio and Foundry are also using to build our agents so that they work together seamlessly. For communication, we're using activity protocol. For orchestration, we're defining agents the same way. And for observability, we're snapping to 𝗦𝗲𝗀. What that looks like is, in the past, if we just go back here real quick, Seth showed you these channels. These are all the channels that you could use to publish to Copilot Studio. Microsoft Foundry, because they're adopting activity protocol, will soon be able to also publish, or actually, you can publish to Teams and Microsoft 365 Copilot. And soon you'll be able to publish to many other channels. We're both aligning on the same YAML format for describing agents. So it's way too small, but if you squint really hard, it looks like the same YAML. In fact, if y'all are folks that were users of Copilot Studio back in the day and you're really heavy users of topics, I highly, highly recommend going into workflows. It's frozen on me. Look at the YAML of the workflows. They look like topics, and that's intentional. And then lastly, we made sure that we are all aligning on the industry standard of open telemetry semantic conventions for Gen AI so that you can view a full trace of all of these things. And we were able to also integrate this all inside of the new Agent 365 SDK and framework with Microsoft Agent Framework, so that across Microsoft, we weren't all trying to integrate with A365 the same way. We all used an SDK to do it. And to show us how that was done, I'm going to be inviting Matthew Barber onto the stage. If everyone can give me a warm welcome for him. Yes?
Thank you.
And what Matt is going to show us
Yes.
is how we are actually making everything real. He's going to be showing real code of how we are, you want 3, yeah?
There we go.
Of how we are coding up our agents across both Copilot Studio and Foundry the same so that we can use them together.
Yeah, we're actually all going back to that whole hugging thing, although I'm not quite the hugger that those guys are. Going back to the hugging thing, we are actually, my team has been extensively supporting pretty much the across the board organization with both the activity protocol and the underlying agent SDK, which is part of the agent framework. So what you just saw us do there with Copilot Studio, I'm going to show you how to do with your own stuff. And by your own stuff, I don't mean use our tools. I mean use code. So what I'm going to show you here is .NET, but the same tech is available in JavaScript and Python today. It does work today. You can go out and try it now. All right. So first off, let's start with just an operational demo here. So I'm going to maneuver this just a little bit so I can see the background. I can see my status screen over here. And I'm going to ask it a question. So you guys were talking about healthcare, so I'm going to go in and dig in it a little bit about that.
Okay, awesome. Let's
can
do it.
you tell me a bit about the history of the NHL and how do players keep getting injured? So now, if you notice here, this popped right back up and said, here's the origins of the NHL. This is pretty cool, okay? But what you're not seeing in the background here is that this query is actually being answered by Copilot Studio. Can you give me a detailed history of the Stanley Cup?
And you're right now inside of M365
I am.
Copilot chat.
Yep. And it's relaying these communications over to Copilot Studio. Copilot Studio is processing that request and providing that information back. Now, today, this client is only set up to be able to answer some basic questions. What can you do? A lot of agents can do this, by the way, unless they're told explicitly to not do it. And in this case, it's going to give me a pretty quick little introduction that says, oh, I can do content creation, data analysis, and do some visuals, and some breakdown about some of the information I've been talking about the whole time. That's okay.
And these are all the tools that the agent basically has at its disposal.
That is correct. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this. And let's take a look at what yeah, this is code, by the way, guys. So let me open up and enter, and let's make it big. So I'm going to walk through a little bit about what was going on there. So in this request, as we were processing this, as I was moving through this, I was handling activities in one of two ways. Now, this is something we've added the Agent SDK now that wasn't in there 2 weeks ago. Well, it was in there in the nightly builds, but it wasn't in the release build. We have this new thing that is called agentic. Is it an agentic request or not?
And I want to take a pause here. So I mentioned that all across Microsoft we're aligning on the activity protocol.
Right.
And because we did that, when Matt Barber introduced this ability for activities to be agentic, we across Microsoft didn't have to develop 5 different times.
Yeah. Everybody got it
once.
Yeah, everybody got it. So which was really cool, actually. A lot of pressure. Really cool. So the other thing we're doing is we're wrapping up all that content with, in the case of OnMessage, with this thing we're calling the invoke observed agent operation. Now, there's 2 ways that this works. In this case, this particular agent is relying upon the A365, the Agent 365 observability wrapper. But then within that, we're actually also using the observability system of the Agent SDK as well to feed that data out as an 𝗦𝗲𝗀, Open Telemetry Sync. Now that Open Telemetry Sync can go wherever you want it to go. If you're using the Agent 365 capability, of course, we funnel that on up into the A365 service, which is where you get all that cool security and tracking and reporting stuff. But you can also see it operate and run locally. Now, if I continue to scroll on down here, we're going to see our basic agent loop. But then down here, we're creating some tools. So I've introduced in this agent a combination of things. I don't want to just build stuff that I'm going to rely on third-party, not third-party in this case, but third-party provided MCP servers that I'm in the cloud with. I also want to run tools locally. In this case, I'm running an 𝗦𝗲𝗀 tool. I'm actually using the 𝗦𝗲𝗀 API. And I've also added an additional set of tools here to support working with Copilot Studio. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to boot this guy back up. Let's kick him out of full screen mode. And let's start him back up. And let's split our viewpoint here. And as I boot my agent up, I'm going to look here in my running local Aspire desktop, and I'm going to see logs start appearing. By show of hands, I don't know if I can see, who's used Aspire before? Do you guys know what Aspire is? A couple of people.
We got a few
awesome.
folks.
So for those of you that actually have never seen this sort of thing, the Open Telemetry feature set is actually something that Aspire makes available to you, where you can run a local Docker container on your desktop. You don't have to do any big setup, and run this running locally. The Agent SDK and the Agent 365 observability system can just talk to it. So I'm going to...
And what's key about this open telemetry piece is you'll be able to emit the exact same telemetry that we in Microsoft use. So if you go inside of Foundry and look at the trace view of your agents, that is using open telemetry. If you go to A365 and see the trace views of your agents in Purview or Defender, that's using 𝗦𝗀𝗀. And how are they doing it? They did not build a separate telemetry package. They use the open source Agent SDK, Agent Framework SDK that Microsoft has provided.
Yep. So I've just asked it a couple of questions. It's giving me a quick update on what's going on, what I can do. What is the weather for tomorrow in San Francisco? And I can't spell it. Let's see if it figures it out. San Fantastic. And let's see. Hey, figured it out. Okay, so that's the weather tomorrow. Okay, great. Let's go look at what we actually captured. Okay, so I can see over here that I got a set of traces going on. That last query broke out, and I can see that it orchestrated a couple of tools. It called for location information. I'm pretty surprised it didn't go through that twice. It got the answer, and then in turn gave me a response. So it loaded up a set of tools, made those available to me, and gave it to me. Now that's nice. Going back to this whole NHL thing, so let's go and ask it again. Can you give me a brief history of the Seattle Kraken? There are Kraken fans here, right?
Maybe.
Awesome. Couple of people. Got a couple. All right, so now it's going to be processed by Copilot Studio. It's running over to Copilot Studio because they made me say, hey, it's being done by Copilot Studio. It's going over to Copilot Studio. I can actually go look at this live and actually see what it's doing in the trace system as well. So I'm going to pull that out, and we'll see it update here. So it went out, then it decided that it needed to process that request into Copilot Studio and send it across. And in that case, we've now got our information coming back. Now that's cool. And it gave me kind of an interesting format there in the response. Now, I want to use Word, and I want to store this, and I want to be able to view this. Okay, well, okay, what do I need to do that?
You need to give some tools.
I need tools.
Right?
Yeah, I need tools. Yeah, I need tools. Now, I am going to jump back over here. I'm going to stop this thing again. And I'm going to come down here to this little piece of code I have here and uncomment this.
And then while he's pulling this up, again, in Microsoft previously, when we needed to add a feature like code interpreter or deep research or something, we literally, I probably shouldn't be saying this, but we duplicated the work 5 different times across the company.
Absolutely.
Now that we are aligning on Agent Framework, we now have a common set of MCP servers.
We do.
That all across Microsoft, we are using this SDK to talk to them so that we can have this common set of tools. And what this means for all of you that are deciding between Foundry and Copilot Studio, I mentioned at the very top, you shouldn't be ever choosing based on features. Why? Because at the end of the day, we're converging on the exact same code so that the features are the same.
Yep. So now here I've restarted it. I'm asking it to load its tools. So it's going to give a pause. Now, why is it pausing? Because I plugged in the A365 tool set, which in this case is a fairly broad tool set. I didn't scope it down. I actually gave it 6 or 7 MCP nodes in the A365 space to work with. So let's take again in the observability leg, let's take a look at what that's actually doing. There's my 32 calls. All of those are tools that are being loaded and inspected by the agent to decide what's available for me to do. Okay. Now, obviously, we don't want to do that multiple times, so we have the ability within the system to actually manage and queue that. So great. Again, I'm going to ask it for some, because I've changed my context. I'm not storing my context anywhere right now. I'm going to say, give me brief history of the NHL and hit enter. Okay. So again, we're going to go talk to Copilot Studio. We're going to process that information. That's awesome. I'm building a little context here. We'll wait for Copilot Studio to come back and give it the request. And the next thing I'm going to ask it is, what can I do with Word? Can I store things? Can I organize things? That sort of things. Okay, so here we go, the original 6. That's important. Okay, can you create documents? Yes.
Should say yes.
Should say yes. So away it goes, and it's asking questions. You're seeing it's a little bit more responsive here as it's loading information up. If I pop over here and again I go look at my traces, I can see that that last call didn't make all those tool calls again. It just asked the GTP4.1 model whether or not it could do something. That's awesome. So now I'm going to tell it to do some more work. Great. I want to create a Word document, DOCU, with NHL history and HOIF. I can spell.
Well, Matt's typing this up.
I can't type.
If you're a business user, which many of you might be, and your eyes are glazing over, that's okay. Because that's why we built 2 different products within Microsoft Copilot Studio for you, and a lot of this coding tooling for your professional developers. And what I like about this demo is what Matt is showing is not only how we are internally within Microsoft building our agent platforms, but even with his pro code, he's able to talk to things like Copilot Studio, further reinforcing that you can have these 2 systems talk to one another.
Yep. So in this case, I asked it to create a document and store it in my OneDrive. And I got a link. I didn't ask for a link, but I got a link. And open up, and let's see what I got here. I have a Word document with my brief history. Okay. My code didn't do any of that when I started. The only thing I needed to change to make that happen was uncomment those A365 tools. Okay? It took my identity, it used that through the system. It's not using a service principal or hiding or doing any sleight of hands. If I had permission to do it, it had permission to do it. Okay? Now, that same concept, I want to show you one more thing here.
Okay.
That same concept translates across to our, oh, by the way, I did want to show that. Last thing here, 13 calls. So there's the tool call to create the new Word document. So it took everything in context and did a tool call to create a new Word document. I could actually, I don't have time right now, but I could actually say, hey, I can go update that with a weather summary. I don't know why I'd put that in a Word document, but I can.
And this, 𝗦𝗲𝗀, the reason why he keeps going back to it is we probably have like now hundreds of people within Microsoft now building on top of this 𝗦𝗀. It is how we're going to be able to secure these agents because, as you saw, we know every single tool these agents are calling.
Yep.
It's how we're going to do automatic evaluations for you because we know all of the messages in and out. It's how you can observe what your agents are doing so that you can investigate what is happening. So all across Microsoft, we are converging on one way of looking at data so that you have one way of looking at your agent data.
So here I have a different identity, John A. Test. John A. Test is presented as a user account. So this was demonstrated in James and Robert's session, I think it was yesterday or day before yesterday, where they described the new concept of agent ID or agentic identity in relationship to agents. Agent ID was introduced by Entra. Agent ID support has natively been built into our stack. So we have now, for those customers that opt into the Frontier program, the Frontier program can take advantage of this. And as I'm going to hit the Enter key, if you will notice over here, in just a moment, there's traffic happening. It's the same agent in the background that has now changed its persona. That agent is now acting as an individual and not acting as me, which is what it was acting as. When it was operating through the 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗻𝗀 test, the A365 test, it's operating as me. When it's operating through 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗻𝗀test, it's operating as 𝗦𝗲𝗀test. 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀test can be a participant in Word documents. They can receive emails. You can at them in PowerPoints and Excel, and it has context. In fact, if you're in Excel and you do at 𝗦𝗲𝗀test and ask 𝗦𝗲𝗀test to do it, you will have to go through the same sharing exercise that you would with any other individual in your company to provide this agent the ability to access it. If I were to go through the same exercise I just did just a moment ago, we would end up in the state where that Word document would get stored on 𝗦𝗲𝗀test's OneDrive, not on mine, on John's OneDrive. I'd then have to ask John to share it with me. Okay, so these are the capabilities that we provide in, again, through that same code path. So again, how did we set that up? And again, for the developers in the room, there are two ways that this is actually done. I'm not going to go through the whole management leg of this, but in development mode, in order to work with the A365 tooling ecosystem, you essentially just need to provide it the set of tools that you want to do. These tools are documented, and all of the tools that sit underneath of them are also documented on the on learn.microsoft.com. It's live now. You can go out and see what's available under the Agent 365 website and see what tools are available to your customer population. Yesterday there was a really cool one that was shown, which was the Copilot tool, which is the searching one. That's really cool.
Nice.
I was going to add it in here, but you guys wanted me to use the Copilot side to do it that way. So
better together. Better together. Okay. So that's about all I wanted to show you here. Actually, I was communicating with Copilot. Oh yeah, no, I'm just going to leave it here. Sometimes I throw in another demo if I have a little time, but we're running a little short. So we'll go ahead and move on. That was great.
Thank you.
Let's give it all a hand to Matt.
Thank you.
And I just wanted, for all of you that are going on this journey with us and experiencing, it has been kind of difficult to converge things, and it is getting better. When it gets better, thank Matt. He's doing the good work across all of Microsoft to make sure that we are using the same, again, activity protocol, MCP servers, and observability.
It is. Yeah, it's a fun task. There's a new protocol every couple of weeks that pops out that we have to try to negotiate through. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's what I do. Matt is much more diplomatic than I am.
People, you got to work with people. Got to work with people.
Bad cop, good cop.
Yep.
So you're witnessing a convergence that will allow agents in Microsoft to work with each other, but as Matt showed you,
you can work with anybody's engine, anybody's protocol, and at the end of the day, anybody's orchestrator. So if you want to use Agent Framework to manage communication into M365, and that's it. You want to go use LangChain, you want to run on Google Cloud or on AWS, you want to use Anthropic's engine and Anthropic's tech, you can do that. And our tools and capabilities will be made available to you within the scope and the capabilities of that particular tool set. So for example, the reason we're grouping up the MCP protocol the way we are around our capabilities is to make that available to any orchestrator that can handle MCP. Okay? The reason that the Agent SDK in particular is set up around handling the activity concept and activity protocol is that's the gateway into the Microsoft ecosystem. And then the reason that we have the orchestrator feature sets around Agent Framework are to allow you to take advantage of the orchestrator model and the work that we're doing should you want to use our orchestration engine. So that graphical experience that Mads was showing a little bit earlier devolves or turns into YAML. And that YAML can be run on the code base that I was just showing. You can run it yourself. You can export it and run it, and it will work. Okay? That capability is really kind of showing that pure convergence of the two technology stacks. We're trying to bring the idea that you can start in the low-code space, the designer space, the editor space, run to that point where, you know what, I need to bring this into enterprise governance and management, and I can bring it across and run a proper SDL and run a proper ALM and a lifecycle on it and push it all the way through if I choose to do it that way. Okay?
And with that, we'll be truly better together. If you're excited to start building yourself, we have this lovely aka.ms link that you can follow to learn more. And yeah, we're glad you all came, and I hope you learned a bunch. And I'm super excited by build. Who knows? Maybe we'll be able to export and import agents from Foundry and Copilot Studio.
Working on it.
Okay. All right.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Cool.
everyone.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Thank you for joining us at Microsoft Ignite's Silent Stages. Please leave your headset at your seat as you exit. Thank you for your cooperation.